Hmm. So over to you, John.
There's Dean.
Okay.
Good morning, Dean.
Hello, Dean.
Good morning, everybody. This is John, Peter, Louise, Ryan, Bill, and Daniel.
Manuela. Yeah.
Well, we all are here. Okay, it was Karen, Jane, and Ashley. You know, I forgot about the Thursday one, so I guess I have to come today then.
There we go. You're used to going to Breakfast Club meetings.
Yeah, I'm used to that. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is late for me. Usually it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. Well, welcome everybody. I think we'll roll. Welcome to the last of the President's Forums for the current Rotary year. We've got today we've got one major item on the agenda. We've got Artifacts and Ann, who is our leader, our chair of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And I'm very pleased to say that we were able to get a proposal from the committee that our governor team has very enthusiastically endorsed to provide a consulting service to the clubs around DEI. And Ardith will tell us a little bit about that today. After that, I've got several items to cover that are year-end items that we want to keep flagging, but there's no other major item. So we'll let the discussion roll in terms of DEI. On our Thursday session, it did roll for quite a while, so that was kind of interesting. But we're open-ended. We will. Our promise to you is to get to finish the sort of quote formal, not that this is very formal part of the meeting, but within an hour. And if people want to stay a little longer, that's fine. We're happy to have an open discussion, but we will cover the content that we've got scheduled within the hour. Actually, we'll probably do. It'll probably be less than an hour to do that. And without further ado, over to you, Ardith. Ardith, you're on mute.
That's not a very good start. Thanks very much, John, and good morning, everyone. This little presentation will be pretty informal. Peter is going to join me in talking about our members survey and our 15 recommendations that led us to the request of the governor team to form a consulting practice to support the clubs as they go forward in DEI. So I'm pleased to have Peter joining me this morning. One of the things, how many of you were at the district conference? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to know how many of you had heard the sessions. I think the district conference did a really good job of incorporating DEI into the agenda items, both the keynote address and a lot of the club presentations focused on programs or projects that they were working on that were of DEI in nature. One of the things, actually, in full honesty, I have to tell you that my daughter, who is the Chief Diversity Officer with Microsoft, was the keynote speaker on Friday morning. And she told us a number of things that I think we do well to remember. She talked about the diversity and inclusion journey. And she talked about something that she calls covering. And that is what a lot of people, some who have speech issues, some who have physical ability issues, will do things like get into a meeting room ahead of everybody else. So people don't judge them based on their presentation before the meeting starts, so that they're not predisposed to how that individual is going to respond during the meeting. She talked about allyship, which is an extension of the partnerships that we in Rotary form with other not-for-profits or other community groups as we carry our projects forward. And allyship involves a little more proactive partnering, and in fact means standing up for the individuals or groups with whom you are partnering. And then she talked about privilege. There are many of us, a lot of us, who forget our privileged position in society, whether it's educational, socioeconomic, or whatever it is. And we need to remind ourselves of that as we go forward. And then I think one of the most interesting things we explored was personal bias. And bias can be either conscious or unconscious bias. And we all have them. We forget that we do, and maybe we don't even know enough to forget. So I've got a couple of interesting URLs for you at the end of my presentation, and I'll just put them in the chat so you can follow up with them. One of the things that we try to do in putting DEI forward, and I must ask you, how many of you have had the DEI 101 presentation in your clubs already? Anybody? No. Okay, you're all on my list. Please call either Peter or me, or text us or email us, because we want to offer you the DEI 101 presentation before we go further. And when we talk about the consulting practice, what we're going to do with the consulting practice is assist clubs in moving forward with DEI within their own clubs and communities. But in order to do that, you really have to have had the basic DEI 101 presentation. So you know what you're talking about and what you're looking for when you're speaking to folks and groups in your community. So one of the most important things about DEI is creating brave spaces and safe spaces. So in our meetings, when we and I think this really deserves at least its own meeting. Some clubs have said they're going to have a meeting a month that's based on DEI and learning more about it. But creating safe spaces so that people feel free to express their opinions and their thoughts about things, and do so without concern for being judged or criticized by any of their fellow Rotarians. And also we talked about personal bias and how we discover it in ourselves and in others, and what we do to challenge it. We're not inclined to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. And if we do, how do we deal with it? It's much easier to say to someone, I have an opinion that's a little different from yours, rather than saying, you're wrong, you're absolutely wrong. It just creates a whole different environment for the discussion to take place. And these are things we don't think about, but they may just be habits. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And that's something that Dr. Bowtie, if any of you have heard Dr. Bowtie speak, that's what he says. We see things as we are, and so true, I think. We talk about bystanders and upstanders, which is one of my favorite areas to talk about, because when situations happen that make us uncomfortable, we have two reactions. And usually our reaction is to be a bystander. Somebody makes an inappropriate comment at a Rotary meeting, and we kind of sit there and feel really yucky and don't know what to say or if we should say anything, and nobody else does. And one or two members laugh, but it's really not funny at all, and it's inappropriate, and it may hurt people's feelings who are in the club. The chances are pretty good that the individual who has made the comment doesn't realize what they've done. And there is a way to respond to this and to respond to it in a way that is a learning experience for the individual. And this is, I think, the role of the president to take the individual aside, and not during the meeting and not in front of the rest of the meeting, but to say, this is inappropriate behavior. It breaches what I'll talk to you about in a minute, the code of conduct that RI has published, that's to be dealt with in anything that has to do with DEI. And it's not fair to all concerned. It just hurts the feelings of other people in the room. Generally, the person says, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. Sometimes they need to be reminded more than once. And as I said, I'll be putting a couple of URLs in the chat because there are now contacts at RI that you can contact the club and district support action line to ask for advice as to how to deal with particular situations. And this is the case with respect to harassment as well. And telling personal stories in this bystander versus upstander are really good. Some people will say, oh my gosh, this happened in my club. I just wished that I had the nerve to stand up and say something. And I can tell you a personal story of mine that happened at Christmas time and took me as much by surprise as the people who were standing in the queue with me. I was at the post office outlet at my local Shoppers Drug Mart, like everybody else in the world, it seemed, with Christmas cards and presents and whatnot to put in the post. And there were two fellows in front of me, and there was an Indo-Canadian family in front of them. And the dad of the family was having difficulty understanding what the postal clerk was telling him. And these two fellows turned to one another and said in a very loud voice, why don't these people just go back to where they came from? And I was so shocked. I did an intake of breath and I just said in a very loud voice, that is a very inappropriate comment for you to make. And there was dead silence and everybody in the line clapped. So there you go. It was just, my heart was pounding, but I knew afterwards that it was the right thing to do. And that's what Jennifer Jones told us last year when she came. She said, when she was speaking about DEI, she says, we have to do better to be better. And I think that's so true. We also have to learn to disagree respectfully. And that's something that takes practice, because there are a lot of things that come up in our meetings or in our everyday conversations where someone is spouting off, maybe based on misinformation, maybe, without any basis for what they're talking about in particular, but they've just got a particular opinion and they're making sure that everybody hears about it, usually in a very loud voice. And there is a way to deal with that. And starting with, I respect your opinion. However, mine is different from yours. You're not attacking the individual. You're dealing with the opinion or the fact or whatever it is that you want, and you put it in a frame that says, I'd like to say something that's different. And this teaches us what diversity is all about, which is respecting and valuing differences, as well as diffusing what could become a very angry situation. So, and that's often develops into something called microaggression, which the code of conduct helps us deal with. So that's just a bit of the background about what DEI is all about. Learning respectful engagement is very important in everything we do, not just in Rotary. You will find that all of a sudden, it's not like I want to be the Billy Graham of DEI, but you'll find that all of a sudden you are a little slower to react verbally to things, that you're more thoughtful about what you say, and that you're probably a kinder person than you were before you started thinking about things along these lines. And we all benefit from that. Now, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the background of DEI and how we got here. And then Peter's going to talk to you about our focus groups and our 15 recommendations that came out of our DEI membership survey. And then we'll quickly talk about our consulting practice that we're on the road with right now. So in 2019, the RI DEI task force basically issued a challenge and a request for proposals to find out where Rotary International stood with respect to awareness around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they hired PricewaterhouseCoopers, who went around the world and had discussions with 33,000 Rotarians about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and took a long time to kind of put something out as a result of their studies, but they did issue a key commitment to Rotary. They issued 8 themes that they thought Rotary would be focusing on moving forward, and also talked about districts and clubs forming their own committees, their own DEI committees, and turning sort of information to conversation to action. And that's the key thing, is that we have to put our money where our mouth is and turn this into action. And what it does, and Peter has been a terrific help in this with his PRPI work, is that all of a sudden Rotary, our public image improves and becomes a little sharper focus, because we're dealing with other community groups in a much more proactive way. And that, I think, changes people's view of what Rotary stands for and what we do, or at least certainly improves it. So I think, as I said, Dave Hamilton asked me to be the DEI chair. And we had an emphasis on First Nations at what we hoped was going to be a district conference in the Nass Valley in 2021, but it turned out, thanks to COVID, being online. And then we formed our focus groups and moved from there to our membership survey. So I'm going to ask Peter to talk a little bit about those areas for you. You're on mute now, Peter. There.
Yeah. So we were anticipating the outcome of the task force led by Valerie Wafer, former director of our zone, and a Canadian, as well as now our current president is Canadian. So our surprise there. Anyway, the results of the task force work. So we wanted to kind of coincide with that. So year before last, we started doing focus groups. So we met with 11 clubs and of different sizes and locations. And so we got a sense of what the trends were and the differences were, as well as the similarities. And then out of that, we performed an online survey for all members in the district to comment on DEI. And it was quite interesting. Out of that survey, when we're looking at a communication process of awareness, graduating to understanding, and then to commitment, and then to action, a lot of the people responding had moved into the kind of commitment and action area. So that was a delightful response. It wasn't highly scientific, and we didn't cover all the members, but it was a good kind of encouraging outcome. So out of that survey process came 15 recommendations, and the committee has been working on those recommendations in the past year since the surveys, a little over a year. And now we've reached the point where we've got the background together, and we're still working on things, but we want to be able then now to launch a consulting service to go to clubs and say, where are you in the DEI spectrum, if you like? We're here to help. How would you like to move ahead on this in some fashion at your own pace? And as Ardith will stress it, we want to let clubs set their own pace, but still overall we have to encourage everyone to keep moving forward on this. And it's not just another program, it's really about who we are and what our future is. It all relates to membership and foundation and community relations and public image and all that. It runs all through that. So somehow or other, we all have different circumstances, but how can we connect with our communities and make people who are join us, or even people who aren't members, but people join us in some fashion or other, feel that they belong. And that key word, and I've stressed this, is community foundations across Canada. There are 191 of them in a network. Focus on that key word, belong. So that's the end result of all what we're trying to do here. And more people in different circumstances feel they belong and they can bring their strengths into the club. So that's where we are now with the launching this consulting service. We're learning as we go forward. So we'll be learning from all the clubs as we do this and improve our consulting service. So that's back to you, Ardith.
Thank you very much, Peter. Peter has been a complete and total rock in our work around DEI over the last couple of years. The overall aim of our consulting practice is to support 75% of our clubs in reaching their satisfaction in functioning in and benefiting from a DEI way of life, with the remaining 25% in progress toward that goal by June 2025. So I say this is a big, hairy, awesome goal, as we used to say in planning for the Olympics, but we're totally optimistic that we're going to get there. And for those of you who may feel comfortable enough around the topic of DEI, Peter and I and Dannison, our membership chair, and Marnie Fraser, an AG, and Shirley Pat have helped so far in making the DEI presentation to clubs. We have a slide deck which we can share with you if you wish, and it forms the basis of the presentation. We'd be very pleased to have your help, and certainly want to hear from those of you who haven't had the presentation, because we, as a consulting practice, will be going to the clubs who have had the presentation first to see how they want to proceed and how we can best assist them.
And
So,
Dean is on the committee.
oh, that's well, Dean's on the committee. I don't know that I was just talking about those that have helped make the presentation.
Yeah, just while you're at it.
So Dean is on the committee. We actually, the committee itself, it has come together really amazingly well over the last couple of years. People have done a lot of hard work, and the research and investigation that's been done around the 15 recommendations. One of the things that's very interesting, for instance, is that a lot of older Rotarians are concerned that well, what about, the four-way test? How does DEI sort of match with the four-way test? And one of the investigations that we did, and it's posted on the DEI landing page, was look at DEI and the four-way test and how they work together. And in fact, the values of DEI are the values of Rotary. And so it's not a question of saying one or the other, but it's a question of saying, this is how they both, these are the synergies between them. And
speaking of the landing page, you can find it on the district website under the first drop-down menu about. You'll see diverse DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion there, and take you to the landing page should you wish to do so.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. We're always looking to recruit more members of the DEI committee. If anybody is interested, please contact either Peter or myself, or you could even contact Dean. There, Dean.
Thank you.
And we're going to advance the learning process across clubs. We're going to learn from one another. We're going to post stories on the showcase and the website. And I was in discussion at the zone level at a meeting on May the 9th, and was invited to sit on the zone DEI committee. So we're going to be benefiting from a lot of the resources that the zone has at its disposal. So I'm really looking forward to that and sharing them with you. And I guess what I just want to remind people about is there are 4 things that my daughter left us with, 4 messages at our district conference. And one, and it's, you have to try. You have to, and you know you're going to fail, but try and fail forward. Learn. We all have to learn. We all have something to teach, and we all have something to learn. And it doesn't matter. And there's something called intergenerational accountability, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it means we're all accountable for the work that we do and the role that we play, regardless of our age. Some of our older members think, oh, those young kids haven't had any experience. They don't really know what they're talking about yet. And the younger members think these old guys don't know how much the world has changed. So we're working hard to break down those intergenerational barriers. And I think we're doing a great job with our Interact programming and our Rotaract programming and our young professionals and a lot of new young members. So the bottom line is we have to do the work. And that's, this is not a sprint. It's definitely a marathon, and it's going to happen over time. Valerie Wafer told us, and on page 14 of your latest Rotarian, there's a sort of a little thing at the bottom of the page that sneaks in something big that's happening. RI has just formed a DEI advisory council, and that council is going to assist districts and encourage districts to account for the progress that their DEI committees are making. And Valerie said, DEI is not a program. DEI is the fabric of Rotary. So that's, I leave you with that and open the floor to questions if we have time, John.
Oh,
And-
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your presence this morning. And if you've got any questions of me, Bill, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, so you mentioned that the DEI 101 presentation should be viewed by us before you speak to us. Did I get that kind of right?
Well, not necessarily, but what I'm saying is it certainly can be made available to you. And you can, if you feel comfortable discussing it with your club, but it would be fine if you wanted to read it in advance of our making the presentation. Either probably we've been doing Zoom presentations because of geographic distances, but
Yeah.
Happy to do that. So if
Yeah, I'd love to read it first,
okay, if you'd like a copy, we're happy to send it.
It sets the scene,
Yeah.
the stage for.
Yeah. It is interesting. We had kind of an embarrassing moment at our last meeting, and okay, I'll just blurt it out. One of our longtime members, she's a good person. She does a lot of work in the community. And sometimes she has an extra drink or two, but she's been a widow she lost her husband about 10 years ago. And she seems to have crushes on men.
Oh, dear.
So anyways, we got a new member to our club. He's really a nice guy. He's around her age and all this stuff. And he's happily married, assumably. And she blurted out a comment, something to the effect of, I can't wait for her to die, implying his wife, so that I can get in there. Which was, and I was up at the front. I didn't hear it. My wife told me about it later. It didn't, we had a very large meeting. We had over 20 people there that time. And so I didn't actually hear the comment until I was told about it later, but he responded back in a really really jovial way, which made it, but I do think that comment was a bit, little inappropriate, you know?
So, oh, there's no question. And, you know,
Yes, exactly.
when the, you know, but probably meant in a joking way, you know.
Yeah.
But when you've had the DEI 101 presentation and the members of your club have had the DEI presentation, and you talk about the code of conduct and the sensitivity around making inappropriate comments,
Yeah.
those things seem to be reduced in numbers. We have a member in our club that for some reason thinks one-liners are very funny and very often has to be reminded of the fact that the club does not appreciate it. Thanks for your question, Bill.
Yeah, and thank you for your talk.
Oh, you're most welcome. Anyone else? Any questions? Good. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Artist, sorry, my internet is cutting in and out, so I didn't get the answer, but I am very interested to have that presentation at my club too, because we had recently an incident as well. So is one of your committee members giving the presentation to the club, or do we see the slideshow first?
You can see the slides first if you wish. Peter and I do a lot of the presentations. Other members of the committee help either Peter or me. We haven't had individual committee members making presentations yet, but we're certainly moving in that direction. So can't say exactly who would be making the presentation, but we're certainly happy to send you the slide deck so you can, as Peter says, it sets the stage for the presentation. Peter, are you making note of these clubs?
It's in chat. But
Oh, good. Okay.
anyway, the invitation is to receive the presentation at one of your club meetings. We can send you something in advance, and then we can start moving forward with you at your pace.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So
I'll jump in and say, well, we're ever flexible and want to do whatever works best to support clubs. My recommendation is very much to make sure that you have the presentation, whether you get the slideshow ahead of time or not. There's all sorts of context to this, and you know, we've got people in Ardith and Peter and some others that just bring a wealth of background to this table, and you know, I think you really want to take advantage of that with the presentation and also the dialogue. Because the dialogue can be pretty critical to this, and you don't know where that's going to go. Because one of the things that this tends to uncover in a way is things that may be a bit latent in terms of people's thoughts and concerns, and it's an opportunity to raise some of those, which is by and large healthy. You know, it can be a little problematic, and we have to remind ourselves to be respectful and so on. But I think having that dialogue is really very, very helpful.
that's good. Good comments. Thanks, John. We'll make sure then that everybody gets a copy of the slide presentation in advance of, so it's not an either or. We still want to come and make the presentation to your club so that all your members have an opportunity to hear the same information, but happy to share the slide deck with you. So that, if there are no more questions, I think we'll move on. Just to say that you can see from what you've heard this morning, and what Peter mentioned, the really close relationship between engagement and retention of members and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion is the most important thing that we do. We're all doing fairly well as far as diversity is concerned, diversity of opinion, diversity of thought, socioeconomic diversity could be better. Lots of things we could make progress in, but inclusion is the thing that we really need to emphasize and be proactive about. So with that, I will turn things back to you, John, as chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ardith. So there are a few things that I'd like to flag as we finish our year. And for those of us that are presidents, and of course, in some of our district roles where we finish one role and move to another, we want to finish strong. And that includes the presidents-elect who are moving from one role to another and are finishing strong as president-elect, even as you jump into being president of your club. And so there are several things we at the end of the year, it's a useful milestone to remind us that we want to complete certain things, even as we segue into the continuity we have from year to year. So I'm going to flag several things, and I'll just go through them, and it's and then ask for any questions or discussions after I go through all of them, so that we make sure that we cover it and stay respectful to getting our content done within the hour. So what I want to raise as we complete the year, and we've talked about this before, is the whole question of retention of members and engagement, which are sort of joined concepts that are joined at the hip. And as we come to the end of June, that's the time when we people take a look at whether they're going to continue in Rotary into next year. And we do have a drop off of membership typically at the end of June. That's just a timing thing, but it's a time when people are sorting out, okay, what's their fit for Rotary in some cases. And I think it's really important that we take a pretty proactive look at our membership as leaders in clubs and look at where people may not be as engaged and think about the why and talk to them, because we need to listen to our members about what their concerns may be, but it needs to be an active listening where we're actually asking, where we're inviting, where we're talking about, okay, there are things, if you haven't been seeing somebody for quite a while, they're not participating in too much in terms of the club. We need to remember that everybody joined Rotary and has a service orientation. And so we need, but things happen in life and things change, but we need to be in touch with that and talking to the people. It makes this kind of proactive approach makes a huge difference in our ability to retain our members and keep the drop off in June to a dull roar. So that's one point I wanted to flag. Foundation is another point. Some people and clubs do tend to remember towards the end of the Rotary year as to whether they've made their donation or not. And other clubs are much more into the November-December period in terms of the concentration on foundation. And so this varies, but particularly for clubs that are more engaged in completing the end of the year. And some of us have goals with foundation that are very, very close, and we're just about there, and there's a certain amount of recognition and so on. Our district has been hugely strong with foundation. Lauren's not on this call. Lauren Calder, our immediate past district governor, who's our district foundation chair, but he was on the Thursday call. And Lauren has done, and his committee have done, a fantastic job with foundation. But it's really everybody. And our total giving in foundation was a record over $1 million last year. We aren't at that level this year, but we are rising fast and coming closer. So it's fantastic. That's total giving, but and our annual fund numbers are doing well. We're over 200 now on our per capita. Won't give you a lot of numbers. If you want numbers, Lauren's all over that. But we really would love to see people just take a look at whether there's anything we need to be doing with foundation. Polio Plus is one that's been lagging a little bit, and we've got the Polio Plus Society for people that commit to $100 US a year. Certainly anything we can do with foundation, it's a marvelous cause. Wanted to talk about goals more generally. With Rotary Club Central, where clubs have got their goals in, and clubs for this year, clubs have done really well in getting goals in. And we are working with clubs in terms of progress towards the goals. The assistant governors are linking with the club presidents. We sent out recently our third quarter report on Rotary Club Central goals and key performance indicators, KPIs. And we've asked the assistant governors to talk to each club president by the 15th of May about the progress, about anything that is a gap that we can help with in terms of district. And basically pretty open discussion about how do we move forward, and are there things that we need to do differently at district. It's not just a case of what specifically is a gap for your club, but also it's a chance for that kind of dialogue about what district supports are coming, and is there more that you need from district more generally. Because as we love to stress, we're here to support and strengthen clubs. And of course, if you get 13 of your goals, you qualify for the presidential citation. And these sorts of milestones are really helpful in terms of actually getting some things completed and done. So it's as we approach the year end, it's really great to take a look at that. The last point I want to raise is we had our annual general meeting on the 4th of May, and it was very, very well attended. We had over 80 people online, so that was terrific. We did the normal business, what I'll call the normal business, but we also had a dues discussion with an increase in dues, which I hope people have seen. And while we did raise the dues in a way that looks like a big number because it went from $50 a member to $85, only $5 of that was what we call an inflationary increase. The other 30 was reflecting the fact that we're going to pay for PET's President-elect Training Seminar registration from district. We did that this past year. It was $850 per. We did that from accumulated surplus, but of course we can't do that going forward. So this is a switch from paying by club to paying by district. That has relatively less implication than it sounds for dues at your club going forward, because of course it's taking away an expense you had in terms of you were needing to budget for the $850 and now you aren't, but you're budgeting for the extra 30 and in dues per member. For the smaller clubs, that's actually a reduction in total costs. For the larger clubs, it's an increase in total costs. Overall, of course, it's a zero-sum game because we're just how we're sharing the same expenditure. So for your planning for next year, Lauren put out a paper which was part of the package for the AGM on dues philosophy that talks about how clubs might approach dues. But for next year, the numbers for the district, you'll be paying $85 per member for district dues and approximately $25 for insurance. We still don't have a final quote on insurance, but it should be with us shortly, but it'll be approximately 25, it appears. And the other bit of news we had, so a total of 110 in terms of cash. And in another bit of news for those of you that are sponsoring or associated with Rotaract clubs, we had been advised that the Rotaract was likely going to have to pay the $25 per member for insurance, and the more recent advice is probably not. That is not yet confirmed, but it looks like Rotaractors will get at least one more year without having to pay the $25 for insurance. So I'm going to stop there after all of that and ask for any discussion on any of those points, and then opened up for anything at all. So anything on those, Bill?
A quick question, because we're actually having a board meeting on the dues thing in a couple of days. Did you basically say that historically our club would have paid our incoming president $850 to go to the pets, and now our club is not going to do it, but this increase of $85, a portion of that's going to go to cover him going to pets? Is that what you said?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, that'll make it easier for these guys to swallow. Thank you.
Yeah, so for a club, so the break even is in terms of club size is 28 or 29 or something.
Yeah.
If you're bigger, you're paying a little bit more. If you're smaller, you're paying a little bit less.
Very good. Thank you. Seems like a very, common sense way to go.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, we've had a lot of debate over what to do, but the debate mostly goes back to pre-COVID because we were talking about it and we did a survey of all the clubs and had a lot of discussion, but then COVID hit. And so we didn't have to do anything about it because for a couple of years we were online, so there was no expense to cover. And then we were able to cover 1 year out of accumulated surplus. But the philosophy on this is that basically that we think it's fairer because it equalizes the number per Rotarian. So every Rotarian will be paying $30 versus some of the smaller clubs we're finding it a challenge, particularly if they had travel. We're not covering travel, although we did cover as a pilot some assistance for travel this past year, but small clubs that have to pay travel, when you figure that out across a relatively small number, it adds up to quite a bit per Rotarian, and this does equalize it for everybody. And even the largest club that was hardest hit was very supportive, the Vancouver club. Sorry, go ahead. Anybody else? Okay, well then let's open everything wide and anything at all that anybody would like to raise on our call today.
Too early in
Okay,
the morning.
there we go. Yeah, well, and we no, that's perfectly fine. If we want to move these, I think if we can move these calls through and we've covered everything, that's just perfect too. We can everybody can save a bit of time within the hour. Anything else before we close?
Manuela had her hand up, John.
Oh, sorry, Manuela. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I have a question. When will be the second information session coming with the grant application?
I don't have that in front of me. Peter may know. I think it's May 18 is, I think Peter's got it. Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about scheduling on May 18th, which is only next Thursday. But just this morning there's been a exchange, and Brian Finlay, who's responsible for that area, is saying reps wait a bit longer. So soon, there'll be in the next week or so, the follow-up session from March, similar to the one in March, will be repeated, if you like, for those who missed it earlier.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for
Bye,
coming.
everyone. Thank you.